So I'm down here in the workshop again, and yesterday morning I noticed a problem, and I didn't think much of it at first. Typical morning, I usually get up, come downstairs to my workshop, and I'll sit at the computer back there. But as I was sitting there going through stuff online, I kept hearing this water dripping, and I didn't think much of it at first because there's a sump pump down underneath the floor here, and water usually drips into that reservoir, and I figured, it was probably that. But I had to mail some stuff yesterday and box some stuff up, so I went over to my shipping area where I keep all my boxes and packing materials, and I happened to notice the workbench here. There was a puddle of water underneath it, and upon closer inspection I discovered that the old copper plumbing that we have running in the house here, apparently the one spot had actually corroded away, and that is starting to become more of an issue within just a day's time. So there's the leak right there, and yesterday it was not dripping that bad. Now it's quite substantial, at least in my opinion. But going down to the floor here, you can see just how big of a puddle was here yesterday. Some of it has dried up, but unfortunately these buckets I got sitting under here aren't catching everything. You can see the water ran over that way and under my workbench here that I use for boxing stuff up to ship out. A little hard to see from this location, but yeah, the leak's right here. And if I just turn over this way, you can see there's my display tables and my workbench over there. I've gone in closer on the leak here, and you can see that there's a bit of a patch job here. I did this, I think, about 2 years ago, and it seemed to fix the problem, but I believe the problem now is the corrosion has actually gone out past this point, and you'll notice there's a bit of a mist there. I'd say there's a small pinhole that's pushing water up, and you can see it's collecting on the bottom of this heating ductwork. So it can't be this top line, because this top line is not connected to anything anymore. This was decommissioned I think about 4 or 5 years ago. This bottom one seems to be the problem, and over time further back here the copper plumbing has been replaced with PVC. I'm just on the other side of the workshop, and just over there is where the leak is at, but I wanted to show the copper plumbing that runs through here. And if we go to the end of this line, you'll notice that this is not connected to anything, and I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere in this line it started leaking. So it was disconnected and the line was rerouted with this PVC. This other line here, it was given PVC back to that point as well, and then a shut-off valve was put in place. But it just seems like over the past maybe 10 years now, this copper plumbing has seemed to be deteriorating. And I know we have a problem with hard water, and I believe it's been I believe this house was built possibly late 1800s, early 1900s. Maybe that's saying something. This is the leak from where I found it yesterday morning, and just this whole area underneath this freezer here was wet. Much of it has dried, but I was just standing here at my workbench where I box stuff up to ship, and I ship everything from basically fan mail to eBay sales. And I was just standing here, and I just happened to look over, and of course there was that big puddle. As it stands right now, I've already had to empty this bucket once. I set it there last night and it managed to fill overnight, so that pretty much tells you how much water is coming off of that pipe right now. But I don't think flooding is really going to be an issue, because the water will drain that way over to a drain there, and it will drain over to another drain over on the other side of the table here. But more so just the risks of a shower, I guess, is what concerns me. The thing that worries me the most about that pipe is that if it gets to the point where the water starts spraying all over, I mean, it could get on my display table right here, or onto my shipping supplies over on the workbench there. And unfortunately, that's one of the risks of having my workshop in the basement, is that there's a whole lot of plumbing and such here that can possibly go wrong, and something could get ruined. So that's one disadvantage to having your workshop in the basement. But at the same time, you know, it does have its advantages. I've got a lot of room to work down here, and it stays relatively cool during the summer months. But unfortunately, it's just, you know, all the plumbing and everything. I do know another YouTuber I'm friends with, Terrence Tractor 525. He has an elaborate HO scale train layout in his basement, and I mean, I don't think he has this kind of problem. Like I said before, this plumbing, it's been replaced over the last decade. Just this copper plumbing doesn't work here in my area because, like I said, the water just deteriorates it. And I'm curious if anyone else has ever had this problem, if you've had a house, an older house like this, where you've had to replace copper plumbing over time, and if you've switched over to PVC. But if you missed the point of this video, there really wasn't one. This is more or less just a random vlog from me over a recent issue in the workshop. I'll try to get back to some better content here in the coming days. So yeah, that's going to be it for me, folks.